Hello everybody, Michael here for Tactica Imperialis. Welcome to today's video. Today is going to be a review slash my thoughts on the reveal of Gathering Storm 3 and the implications of all of that, and for the Horus Heresy Weekender which just took place. I didn't want to make the Gathering Storm 3 video until the Weekender was over because it all sort of ties together over a very large Primarch based theme, because Horus Heresy Book 7 Inferno was revealed at the Horus Heresy Weekender at Warhammer World, so I had a vested interest in that because that's the Burning of Prospero, that is the Thousand Suns. But we'll start off by talking about Gathering Storm 3. If you're wondering why I didn't also make this video before, it's because my opinions on this were in the podcast, but that hasn't come out. Most of you know the reasons why. Links in the description if you still want to get involved with that. So yes, the reveal of Roboute Guilliman and Gathering Storm 3. Let's start with the model. I really quite like this model. Normally I'm quite skeptical with models that get released. I wasn't that keen on Magnus the Red the Demon Primarch when he was released. I wasn't that keen on the Lord of Change. It takes me a little bit of time to get on board with a model. And yet, this one immediately appealed to me. This one I think I liked faster than most others. That's not to say it's perfect, and I'm sure there are things wrong with it, but I do think it is a very nice model. I'm just going to see if I can find the Warhammer community article so I can get all of my lore information correct. Gathering Storm 3, there we go. Yeah, I just want to get this up, but yeah, let's do the model, shall we? So yeah, very good model, very nice model, but problems I have with it. Going to be an absolute bloody nightmare to paint. There's a lot of gold and not as much blue. Now, I'll talk about the lore reasons why this model's so different to the 30k model in a minute, but the armor is probably going to be a pain in the butt to paint. The Emperor's sword, or the sword that he's carrying, that's going to be a nightmare to paint unless you're very good at fire effects. The braziers, I don't know what they're doing there. I don't know what those braziers on his ankles are there for at all. Like, they're just going to get in the way. I do like the Hand of Dominion. That's been well sculpted, although again it looks rather different to the 30k Hand of Dominion, which is actually the same weapon. Let me see if I can just find the 30k Guilliman model, and I'll see if I can... Yeah, there we go. So yeah, that's the Hand of Dominion. Yeah, they've added a lot more detail even to this Hand of Dominion with all the extra Aquila stuff, and they've mounted the bolter underneath. They've changed a lot with it. So, is it perfect? No. Is it good? Yes, I do like it, and I'm normally quite skeptical with like big reveals. So, like, for example, when Demon Magnus came out, I really wasn't sure about him. Same with the Lord of Change and the Avatar of Inade. I'm still not keen on the Avatar of Inade, but I'm not always quick to love a model. But Guilliman's I like pretty much immediately. Like I said, it's got its flaws, but it's pretty damn good. And I'm really glad they gave him a helmet, because if you're someone like me who's bad at painting flesh, or perhaps you don't like his head, then you can just give him a helmet, and I think it actually looks better to have the helmet, which is really, really good. His backpack is really interesting. I'm sure most of you have seen it. I'll put the Warhammer community article in the description if you haven't. But his backpack is really interesting. It's got this life support system in the back, the Cog Mechanicus, and all these cables, which is interesting. And then we've got the sword of the Emperor, or one of the Emperor's swords. Apparently, I don't know if it's the sword used, but hey. So that's the model. Now let's talk about the lore implications of everything, because that, I think, is more important, at least to me, is like where the story is going to go, because I'm not going to buy this model. So why is Guilliman back? How is Guilliman back? First off, he wasn't healing in stasis, or if he was, this isn't what brought him back. To quote, his body was held in stasis, caught in the heartbeat before death. Now, through the artifice of Belisarius' call and the alien sorcery of the Eldari Vrain, he returns to the Imperium. quote the Warhammer Community article. So the Magos from Gathering Storm 1 and the woman from Gathering Storm 2, who is a Dark Eldar succubus, so a witch, have brought him back to life. Nothing else. It's not that he's healed himself. It's machines and sorcery that has woken him up again. Don't know how keen he is on that. It isn't really stated. But he's back. And yeah. So the main thing I want to point out with this model and the lore is his armor. A lot of people, as soon as he came out, drew comparisons between his 30k and 40k model. Why is he so different? The main reason is he's not wearing the same armor. In 40k, he is armed with the Armour of Fates. In 30k, he is armed with the Armour of Reason. Two very different things that will probably do very different things in the game. And with Guilliman's body being as decayed as it is, I don't know quite how good the Imperial Stasis stuff is, but I suspect he's probably atrophied quite a bit. There's a lot of tech gone into it now. So his backpack, for example, contains a life support system and a reactor to power his suit's many dominions. His suit's many systems. It's not stated to be armor as much as anything else. It's a life support system. He's basically Darth Vader. He's kind of like Darth Vader. For want of a much better analogy, he's kind of like Darth Vader. He can't really leave his armor now. He's probably nearly a dreadnought. I bet if it wasn't for the sorcery, they'd have had to make him a dreadnought to keep him alive. I really do think that. And that'd be a really fun twist to have a Primarch dreadnought, but then again, they just released a human version of him, so why would they make a dreadnought version for him? But yeah, so that's the model and I think the lore. Now, the main other thing I want to talk about is his sword. Now, everybody knows it's stated it's a sword of the Emperor. It's one of the Emperor's swords, but I believe the Emperor is stated to have had many swords. I mean, I'll try and find the White Dwarf article quickly. And see if I can zoom in on it properly to read it. But as far as I'm aware, it's one of the Emperor's swords. Can I zoom in? Yes. Perfect. Bum, 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 bum. No, it doesn't say, but I'm pretty sure it has been stated that the Emperor has had a lot of swords in his time. So it may or it may not be the sword that the Emperor had on Terra. Sorry about the long delay there, I was just browsing for something. But yeah, it may not be the sword from the Vengeful Spirit. It could be. And with Guilliman being Lord Commander of the Imperium before his death, and I'm going to call it his death because he was resurrected. It's pretty much stated he was resurrected, not recovered. So he did die, basically. So before his death, he was Lord Commander of the Imperium. He may well have had the Emperor's sword in his possession before he died, or when he fought Fulgrim. How it wouldn't have killed Fulgrim, I don't know. So that's really kind of interesting, and it'll be interesting to see how powerful that is. But Gathering Storm 3 is a lot more going for it than just Guilliman, because it is stated as being the final part in a trilogy. I think it's stated in this article that this is the last part. Hang on. I'm pretty sure it does. Yeah, the third book in the Gathering Storm series, concluding the story arcs that began in Fall of Cadia and Fracture of Biel-Tan, which isn't even out yet. I just want to point out that it's really disappointing that this has been revealed now. We haven't even got Gathering Storm 2 yet. It's not even in our hands, and we're already talking about Gathering Storm 3. I wish this had not been leaked this early. I wish they could have had some maybe spoilers about it, maybe, but not brought the reveal this early, because we've basically had Gathering Storm 2 spoiled. So I will go and get that White Dwarf article back up again and zoom in on that and see if I can find it. Here we go. Because it's taken from White Dwarf and it has a big, long, spoilerific section. So, Call investigates pylons, Trazyn goes to Cadia, the succubus Ivrain becomes the emissary of Enaid, Grapho Biel-Tan is invaded, Ivrain destroys the heart of Biel-Tan and creates the avatar of Enaid, Biel-Tan is fractured and the Inaria formed. They are the Eldar that serve Enaid, and they have some sort of soul manipulatory ability. We'll see about that when Gathering Storm 2 comes out. Since Celestine appears on Cadia, Abaddon invades Cadia, Trazyn unleashes the exhibit, the Inari go into the Eye hunting for the Crone Swords. We don't know what they are yet. Again, wait for Gathering Storm 2. Eandon is invaded, Cadia falls, and the survivors travel to the moon of Clysis, where they meet with the Inari and escape into the Webway. That is basically what happened. So, long story short for Gathering Storm 2, Biel-Tan is dead, because its heart was destroyed, and that's created the Avatar. And Eandon is probably screwed. And we've got these things called the Crone Swords. I don't know what they are. We'll find out what they are. We've still got a lot of questions hanging from Gathering Storm 1 because of the Space Wolves going into the warp and whether various people survive, what state people are in, what Trazyn's up to. Because the Imperium has gone into the Webway with the Inari, and they are going to appear on Ultramar, on Macragge, for the battle with Abaddon. We've got some screenshots, or some pictures from White Dwarf and from the article that show Guilliman, Calgar, Sicarius fighting alongside Celestine, Greyfax, and all that. Along with Cypher and, what's his name, Grandmaster Voldus? Yeah, Voldus. Grandmaster Voldus of the Grey Knights. Both of which are very nice models. I do like Cypher and do like Voldus, and I think Cypher is going to be one of the more interesting dynamics, but we're getting into a lore discussion there, so I'll just finish talking about Gathering Storm 2 quickly. So yeah, we don't really know where everything's going to go, but they've set the stage very well, but they've got to then wrap it all up. This story arc ends now. Well, it ends in March with Gathering Storm 3. So the question becomes, who wins? Because if Abaddon wins, which he might, Ultramar falls, and I think what happens is Ultramar falls and Guilliman runs for Terra. I don't think GW quite has the balls to kill off Ultramar and Macragge. I don't. They could, and I'd applaud them for doing it, but nearly wiping out the Ultramarines, I mean, I know you wiped out the Cadians, but the Ultramarines are basically the poster boys for 40k, so you've got to be careful. And I think that's why we got Guilliman, not Johnson as well, even though it fits better with Cypher than if we got Johnson, because poster boys. It's plain and simple. Dark Angels are not, Ultramarines are, Guilliman. So if Abaddon wins, Ultramar falls, Guilliman is probably going to get royally screwed over, but will survive and run for Terra with Cypher. And then we have the Siege of the Imperial Palace Mark 2. But that's a whole different story arc. But because they want to conclude the arc, I think more than likely Abaddon's going to lose. And it has been implied or suggested that Abaddon's going to die. Now this would be a really good way to reinvent Abaddon, maybe elevate him to a demon through the demon bound within Drachnian or through Be'lakor, see a new War Master rise, either Honshu, Huron Blackheart, or maybe even try and splinter the Chaos Forces to be under the Four Gods, or maybe bring Lorgar back as the new War Master, whatever you want to do. I think it's more interesting to kill Abaddon because that's the most wild option. Like, the obvious thing they can do is just Abaddon loses, he runs away, and then Guilliman has to deal with rebuilding the Imperium again, having to change the entire thing from the top down, basically, because, well, 9,000 years, a lot of things have changed within the Imperium, and given the amount of organisation he'll have put into it, he'll probably be rather miffed about the state of the place. So, Guilliman winning and Abaddon running is the safe bet, and probably the most likely. Abaddon dying is possible, given that they want to wrap the story arc up here, but Abaddon is such a major lore character, like, that would be the biggest character death, I think, ever. I can't think of a bigger character death in 40k, at least not in recent memory, at least as long as I've been playing. No major character has died, at least not that big. And while they have been willing to kill people off, like Eagle Iron Wolf and Jaren Kell, they haven't killed a big guy off yet. They haven't killed a Creed, a Logan, a Primarch, or Abaddon. Abaddon would be the biggest death in 40k for as long as most people can remember, if not ever. So that's a risk. And then, of course, Abaddon winning is the other option. But given that we want to wrap this arc up, the Siege of Terra Mark II, unless they became a series in its own right, which it could, it really, really could, it kind of feels like it's a continuation of the story arc rather than a separate one, as Fall of Cadia was to Warzone Fenris. Speaking of Warzone Fenris, I'm curious to see where the Primarchs are going to fill in next. Because now we have Magnus and we have Guilliman. Who are we going to get next? Because the Dark Angels, with Cypher now being in play, and basically saying, I will help Guilliman as long as he takes me to Terra, then that implies that Johnson could come back. If Cypher gets to the Golden Throne, we could easily see the return of Johnson. The Space Wolves have gone into the Eye. They're almost certainly hunting for Russ. Russ could come back. On the traitor side, well, basically everybody's back. They just haven't brought them into the game yet. So we've heard tells at the end of Wrath of Magnus that a lot of the traitor Primarchs are back now. Mortari, Angron, Fulgrim probably in particular. Which kind of breaks the rules on, on the banishment rules. We don't really know how that works anymore. It's like gone completely out the window how long those demon Primarchs are supposed to be banished for, considering they're so hard to summon. But plot. Perturabo will be back, and Lorgar may or may not be back, depends on if he's decided to get out for his meditation for a while, and all that. Anyone else on the Loyalist side? Jagtai could still be in play. Korax could well be a big twist. The Wolves failed to find Russ, but find Korax instead. Vulcan is an obvious one. There's the idea that Dawn might not be dead because they only recovered his arm. And there's options. There's really options. I think that's everything I really wanted to say on Gathering Storm 3. I've talked about Guilliman the model and the lore behind all of it. I've touched briefly on Cypher, because while Cypher is really interesting, he's so enigmatic and there's so little information on him that we really don't know what to make of him. And Voldus is pretty much a brand new character, never heard of before. Is basically their chief librarian, or the warder of the Librarius. So I'm assuming he's going to be a ridiculously powerful Psyker. I'm not going to say Magnus level, but a ridiculously powerful Psyker, maybe the best Psyker the Imperium's got, nonetheless. And one last thing, actually, while I'm talking about Gathering Storm, I'm very curious to see what's going to happen with Calgar and Sicarius, and Agaman, who is the first captain of the Ultramarines chapter, because Calgar will defer command to Guilliman, and Guilliman will become... I think Calgar will remain chapter master, but Guilliman will supersede him as the commander once again. And I'm curious to see what effect that has on Calgar and Sicarius and everybody else, now that they're not at the top of the pile anymore. And it's just a little thing, and I'm not sure they'll really explore it. I think they'll more explore Guilliman's reaction to how things are now, because Guilliman's never heard of Tyranids. He's probably never heard of Necrons. He's never heard of Tau. There's a lot of new things for him. Never mind how the Imperium is probably right now. It is right now, both on a physical and a mental level, in terms of its bureaucracy, its mindset, and all of that stuff. But we shall have to wait for March and Gathering Storm 3. I look forward to it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in more detail when it's all done. And now we come to the Horus Heresy Weekender. I probably could have made a completely separate video on this, because I didn't expect to be rambling on about Gathering Storm for nearly 20 minutes. But let's talk about the Horus Heresy Weekender, because Book 7, Inferno, this is important for me. This is much more personal than anything else, but we got the leaks / screenshots of the Legion rules for the Space Wolves and the Thousand Suns. I'm not going to run through them all here, because I could easily be here for an hour talking about all of that. I will probably do a review for them, if I ever get around to finishing my other reviews, when they come out and I have them in my hands. Suffice to say, the Thousand Suns look good, and they look fun, but I don't think they look quite broken. So, their main mechanic is getting Psychic into their army. So, their Praetors, which are their equivalent to Chapter Master, they're top ranking HQs, must be upgraded to be Psychers for 25 points a level. I think they can go up to 3. And Veteran Tacticals, who are your basic tacticals of common day Space Marines, but they're an elite slot for Heresy. And Terminators can all be upgraded to be Brotherhood of Psychers for 25 points a squad. Now that's between 2 to 5 points a model, depending on the size of the squad, and that's really good value to get Brotherhood of Psychers. You then have the Cult Arcana. I cannot get my head around how this works, because it's not very well explained in the images I've seen, but it appears that your units get sworn to a cult based on your Warlord. That gives them a buff if they use that Psychic Discipline, and they get a general buff anyway. For example, Divination gives you basically the Mark of Tzeentch, a 6+ invuln, or +1 if you've already got one. So Cataphracti now are ludicrously tough with Cult Arcana if you pay for it, and you take Divination, but you have to pick the same one as your Warlord, which will be your Praetor in most cases. So you have to swear that in. Magnus, his rules allow you to unlock the cult choices, so if he's your Warlord, which he will be because he's a Primarch, then you can pick whatever cult you want for each unit. So you might want a telepathic Terminator squad, a Divination Veteran squad, and a Praetor that uses Biomancy. I really don't know. Other things to note with them, I've got that here. They've got 2 Rites of War, both of which look quite fun. One of them is like all about psychic, and the other one is all about I don't see it explained as here. It's all about like border control and dictating things, which is kind of fun. They have their own unique battle automata, which are a Mechanicum unit usually, but they're controlled by Psychers. They've got their own unique Terminators, the Sekhmet Terminators, who are immediately level 2 and choose Telekinesis or Pyromancy. Other than that, they're just Terminators of some sort. They've got unique Bolter ammo, which is basically Shred. They've got the Kenetai Occult Blade, which are like 37 points a guy. They come with 2 Force weapons each. They're Mastery level 1, and they can pick from any discipline. And if you get a lot of them, they get even better. Like, they're already Weapon Seal 5, but they only have 1 attack, plus 1 for 2 weapons. But if you can get a bigger squad together, you can get either +1 attack, +2 attacks, +1 weapon skill. There's a few good things you can do with them. And then you have the Amitara Occult Intercession Cabal, who are actually Space Marine Scouts. They're Scout Snipers with special things called Shroud Bombs. I'm not sure what they are yet. And they only know 1 power, which is basically Prescience. So it's Warp Charge 2, gives them reroll to hit, reroll to wound, and ignores cover. So they are very, very good. It's a very powerful power. It's basically Prescience on crack. But they've got Infiltrate, Scout, Stealth, Move through cover. They're basically Space Marine Scout Snipers, but they cost 27 points a guy, which is a lot. You have Isaac Araman. He has his rules. He's 225 points. He's a level 4 Psyker. He uses Divination. You can upgrade his Legion Command Squad to be... Oh, you must upgrade if he takes a Legion Command Squad to be Mastery level 2. I will be doing that because I got a Command Squad for Christmas. They become Corvidae and take Divination. So basically the way Cult Arcana also works, you get +1 to cast if you pick the right discipline. So what it means is, if your HQ is, let's say, Corvidae, which is the Cult of the Raven, the Divination cult, then if you choose to cast from Divination, then you get +1 to cast. So you're casting on 3s. He's got a nice Warlord. He does a bunch of stuff. Scout. You have Armon, who was Magnus's tutor. He's a level 3 Divination or Telepathy, and he's very sneaky. So he's got basically shrouded, like a super awesome cover armor, but no invuln. He's good about getting stuff about outflank. He's good at countering infiltrators and outflank. So you can't outflank near him, and you can't deep strike near him. He's really quite nasty. And Magnus is 500 points, basically. He's hard hitting. He's a Primarch, as you'd expect. He's a level 5 Psyker, I think. Arch Sorcerer, yeah. He's Mastery level 5. He casts on it. I can't read it. It's blurred out. I can't read it. You have to roll 3 6s to make him perils. You reroll 1s on the perils level so he can't kill himself. He generates 5 powers from any discipline you want, apart from Malefic Demonology. He has a 2-up armor, 4-up invuln. Destroyer weapons are a little bit weaker. Destroyer isn't the same as the D weapons in 40k. He's got an AP1 2-handed Force Staff. He's got a -1 to hit penalty on everything, and blasts are harder to hit with him. He's got an Strength 8 AP2 gun. He's got automatic line of sight for his psychic powers, like he just overlooks everything, and he can buff one of his witch powers. It increases its warp charge by 2, but it gets plus 2d6 strength and gives it destroyer if it gets above strength 11. This means that beam powers become ludicrous, pie plates become ludicrous, but it's plus 2 warp charge and you can only use it every time you cast a witch fire. Ouch. They're the units and stuff for the Thousand Suns. As far as their Legion rules go, your Warlord must be an independent character with a Psychic Mastery level and the highest available leadership in your force. Any HQ independent character who's not already Psycho can be purchased it for 20 points, and they can exchange their power weapon for a force weapon for 5 points, but you have to pay for the power weapon first. Their Praetors, I've already explained about Praetors, which it costs them more to be upgraded, but then again, you're probably taking them anyway. The Arcane Litanies allow you to avoid Perils of the Warp, 1 use only. They get a buffed Plasma Cannon, buffed Bolter Rounds. I've talked about the Cult Arcana, but they have 1 or 2 debuffs. So if somebody takes a Perils of the Warp test, or takes damage from Perils of the Warp, then everybody takes a pinning test immediately. And if all independent characters die, then you're at -1 leadership for the rest of the game, and you can't sweeping advance. So it's not all good. Oh, they've also got a unique Contemptor variant, like Librarian Dreadnoughts, which is kind of fun. So Thousand Suns have got a lot going for them. I've just opened the wrong thing. Whoops. So yeah, Thousand Suns have a lot going for them. As for the Space Wolves, I'm not going to go through it in full here, but I think the Space Wolves are actually quite limited. Like, they only have 1 troop option. They have less consuls. They're all rolled up into Priests of Fenris. Russ looks like a beatstick, which you'd expect him to be, whereas Magnus is a ranged beatstick. He's not a buffer. I thought Magnus would be more of a buffer than he is, but he's not. He's a straight up psychic beatstick who can also fight in melee. Russ is the biggest beatstick in the game. His armor actually is the best armor in the game, I think, because if you stay in combat with him, you're at -1 to hit. In the second round, you're at -2. That means nothing can hit him on 4s, unless they're hitting on 2s, and that's very, very rare. So most things, even other Primarch, are going to be hitting Russ on 5s. He's weapon skill 9 anyway, but they're going to be hitting him on 5s, and that makes him very hard to beat. I mean, Worldbreaker from Horus would have to run the maths to see how it would all work out, but it's very, very interesting how powerful Russ will be. They have a couple of characters, including Gygor Fellhand from the Burning of Prospero. Bjorn is not a named character. Bjorn does not get mentioned as far as I remember. And I think the Space Wolves are going to be one of the weaker legions, because they seem to be a bit like the World Eaters, but maybe even less rounded, because they rely on infantry combat a lot, and some of their rites of war, they can do a big flanking maneuver. I'm just not sure whether the Space Wolves are going to be quite up to it. The Thousand Suns will be good, mainly because psychic defense is so rare in this game, in 30k, that they're just going to be quite good, and having the options for level 3, level 4, level 5 psychers is pretty nice. And if you take the right Rite of War, Magnus can move to HQ, and you can get another Lord of War, which is even more terrifying. But I think 30k is going to be interesting with the Thousand Suns. The Custodes will also be getting stuff. I haven't seen that yet, but one thing we did see from the Custodes, the Emperor is confirmed. In the Legio Custodes rules, which by the way apparently are broken as all hell, Constantine Valdor is going to be in the game, and so is the Emperor. We're getting the Emperor. I don't know what to make of that. I really don't. It should be fun, and it's going to be great the Emperor gets the model. By the way, if you haven't seen the Guilliman conversion into the Emperor, it's awesome. But yeah, the Emperor's going to be in the game. That's going to be one of the most monumental challenges I have ever seen. But the Emperor's coming. That's going to be really interesting. We've got a bunch of new models like Custodes Dreadnoughts, Custodes Jet Bikes, and Transports. I think there's some new Solar Auxilia, some new Mechanicum stuff. I didn't see any Sisters of Silence from the images I saw online, because I didn't get down to Nottingham to see it for myself. We got a few other things, but the one thing we didn't get Magnus. No reveal of Magnus. Why? Russ was revealed and put on sale a good while ago now, and I think he was the latest addition to the character series. Why didn't Magnus get revealed? All we've got of Magnus is a headshot, like a mugshot of like here up, of his model. That was put on Warhammer Community at the end of the Horus Heresy Weekender, and it looks great. Don't get me wrong, but this section is the least important bit. Well, it's not the least important bit. That's his base, but the rest of him is far more important. Like what pose he's in, where his weapon is. His weapon's not up here. His weapon must be across here. So I'm thinking about the book about Magnus the Red, where he's like sweeping it, and I think it's going to be posed like that. So it's going to be like up across here because I didn't see his weapon. Either that, or it's going to be down by his side and he's going to be casting. We didn't get to see it, so I'm really, really interested, and I'm really almost desperate now to see Magnus's model, but we haven't got it yet, and I wish we had. And that's basically the Horus Heresy Weekender in a nutshell. There's a load of other stuff. There's a bunch of stuff from Black Library. The Las Vegas Open took place, which was a kind of interesting, but that was in Vegas, obviously, not in Nottingham. And the weekend didn't have a lot going for it, and I wish I could have gone, but I couldn't. And I'm very interested to see what happens next, how Book 7 stacks up, and of course when Magnus comes out, there will probably be some serious fanboying on Twitter. But that's all for the future. So that's my thoughts on Gathering Storm 3 and on Horus Heresy Book 7 and the Horus Heresy Weekender in general. So let me know what you think. If you made it to the Weekender, that'd be very interesting to see what you have to say. Maybe I've missed some stuff about the models, Black Library, and the rules and stuff, and you'd be willing to fill me in. That'd be very nice of you. And if you've got your thoughts on Gathering Storm 3, because obviously everybody and their mother has a thought on Gathering Storm 3, then do let me know. Yeah, I think that's everything. So thank you all for watching. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and until the next time, I'll see you all again. Bye for now.